the second I look at it, I know every single answer.
All right.
Should do that again because I was talking while you were stamping.
It's fine.
Is it going to matter? You'll still be able to
You'll
sing.
see the clips.
It's fine.
It overrules.
As if he's the one editing it. But
It'll be fine.
You don't make it easier
Don't
for
worry
me.
about it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry, it's fine.
Don't
It's
let it
fine.
be easier for you. We don't care.
Welcome back to another episode of You Asked For It. This is probably all of ours favorite thing to do
It's pretty
For
fun.
sure.
because we all get to
No doubt.
share our opinions. But yeah, You Asked For It. This is the show where you send us questions and we spend time talking about them.
We give you opinions you didn't care about.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it goes.
And I might add, this is just such a great practice for me to not dominate conversation.
That's good.
You know, I'm showing restraint.
You should run timers as you edit this.
Yeah, I'm just kinda-
3 separate timers. How much Johnny talked, how much I talked, how much and we'll just see where they balance out.
I think you will notice the restraint that I am showing.
Okay.
Is quite amazing.
You may not have restraint after I read this week's question.
Ooh.
Okay,
However,
I have no idea.
Okay.
No idea what the question is, and to me, that's half the fun. Is let's get a question, and then from our experience and everything, we'll come up with what our perspective is. Okay,
so we did
I'm
have
ready.
we did have a pretty good question come in, and I figured it was worthy of today's episode. And we know everything that's going on right now in Minneapolis with riots and protests, and it's kind of
The country?
spread
You mean?
countrywide. Yeah,
Oh,
no, I was gonna
I,
say, originating in our
Yeah.
state and then kind of spreading out. But
What if this is like Corona? This is going to spread globally.
Let's see what the question is.
Okay, let's see what the question is.
Okay, here we go. So this comes from Rachel, and Rachel says, in light of the Black Lives Matter movement and protests in the cities currently, so many of my friends and family have been asking something on Facebook. If peaceful protesting hasn't helped or fixed the problem with racism in this world, and we're upset that there are fires and riots, how else do we expect people of authority to finally get the message that it is not okay to treat people of color the way they have been treated? And they've also asked if peaceful protesting hasn't done anything in the past, then what can we do to change things?
All right, boy, I got a lot to say to that. Can I just start with the last one?
Buckle up, everybody.
Timer's
The
running.
last comment was peaceful protesters haven't done anything, and I would disagree with that. I think Martin Luther King Jr. Accomplished a lot through peaceful protests.
Yeah.
I think it accomplished a lot. I think it brought the civil rights movement in, and it changed civil rights laws. So first of all, I would just disagree with that last comment that peaceful protests have not accomplished anything. They've accomplished a lot. So starting there, and I have a comment on every one of those points, but you go.
Yeah, why don't you go?
Okay, can we just set the stage? This is my opinion.
Oh, if you're
Racism is bad.
Okay, there you go.
Before we go anywhere, I don't want anything I say to be misconstrued as
let's set that clear. As there's 3 white men sitting here that you're watching this.
yes.
None of us agree with racism.
Correct.
Racism is horrible.
Yes.
And just
Okay,
we're gonna
good.
say that up
now
front.
that we've established that base layer, my opinion, I cannot understand. I mean, she posed the question, what else can we do besides peaceful protest to help? I cannot make my brain work to see how riots and burning businesses that are uninvolved in what originally sparked this controversy have helped either. Mm-hmm. Besides just making more people angry and hurting more people. I mean, there's already loss of life, an incredible loss with the police officers and George Floyd. Now that's just been exponentially increased to affect people that had nothing to do with it. I don't know. I'm trying to remember exactly what the question was, but I remember that part stood out to me.
And I don't want to. I want to clarify. She's kind of asking a question that her family members have asked her. Mm-hmm. I mean, she goes on to say that she feels that she knows the answer, but this isn't necessarily her question. It's things that family keep bombarding her with.
Yeah.
Well, not just family. I think there's a good portion of
there's
culture
tons,
who are
mm-hmm.
saying, if we're not going to get heard, What do we have to do to finally get heard?
Yeah.
But I know that's human nature, and I know that we want to scream when we don't get heard. I mean, I get that, but that doesn't necessarily okay it. I know why people are doing it, because they're frustrated and angry. But there's so many things wrong with this from every angle that what we're angry about is people being treated unjustly, and all Riot is doing is treating more people unjustly. So I don't know how treating people unjustly brings attention to, or brings about a resolve to people being. So one man, treated another man unjustly. Let's call it racism because he was black. He hated him and killed him. That's a horrible thing. He should go to prison for the rest of his life.
Yep, agreed.
All right, but there's so many layers here. First question was, the very first thing is, this whole racism thing is always going to be with us. Let's not call it racism. Let's call it differing of opinions, different cultures, different things. I know that not everybody likes Christianity, and Christianity has been challenged a lot these days. Not everybody respects my values as a Christian. And not everybody's going to respect that. We don't live in a kumbaya world, and we never will.
Yeah.
However, is that okay for a person to treat another person violently or hurt them? No, that's why we have a judicial system, and they need to be taken care of. And that cop, once the whole investigation is done, should serve justice. I think it's a huge problem to blame all cops, all white. So every time we go down that road, we know we're just talking out of frustration. Because I know some of the greatest cops in the world. I was just thinking about this. I didn't look into this. You guys could. How many arrests or how many cop confrontations have there been in this country in the last month? Tens of thousands, I'm guessing. Out of tens of thousands of cop interactions, how many of them were really, really nice? Cops went over and above, treated people with respect. How many? Because I'm guessing 98%. I mean, so let's just put it in perspective. The cops generally are there to help and serve and protect, and they do generally. But there's a bad apple in there. That person needs to be dealt with, not the city.
Correct. Yeah.
Not the city. There are ways to take care of this stuff. I saw the saddest story. Well, the saddest is his life being taken away. That's the saddest. The second saddest thing I thought was other innocent people shot in these riots. Okay, well, that's the country. That's just as sad, isn't it?
Very much.
And then this poor guy who happens to be a black man who has a business in Minneapolis, his whole life savings in there.
Yeah, no kidding.
And these uncaring people who disrespect life and everybody else in the name of respecting life completely destroyed this man's business. Like, I can't understand. I think back to your point, I understand that people are enraged. I get it. But what you do with that or how you deal with that, we'll either say it's going to help or not. These riots have done more to harm this racial problem than it does to help. Because it's made neutral people start to hate them. Didn't hate them before, but now I do. Because I see the destruction and damage and horror they're doing.
Well, what would you say? Okay, so I've seen this question posed where people say the people that are in major support of what's going on around the country right now as far as riots and whatnot, they say somebody who disagrees with it, they'll say, well, you're asking the wrong question. It should be, it's unfortunate that these riots are happening, because George Floyd died, rather than, like, they're saying we're focusing on the wrong thing, where it should be they're happening because George Floyd died. Stop. I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
the question is,
I think there's a difference between a reason for something happening and excuse for something happening.
Yeah.
There is a reason.
I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
There is a reason. People are upset. But that is not an excuse to do damage, destruction, destroy, break the law, and even take other people's lives. It's just, there's no way to look at that any differently.
I think as mature, responsible adults, aren't we supposed to be in control of our emotions?
Yes.
I mean, I see the same type of behavior. My opinion.
This is all our opinion. Yeah.
But what I see happening in Minneapolis and in other cities around the world is just people having just this unbridled rage of emotion, and it's pouring out in what I think is all the wrong ways. But I can see so much commonality between how they're acting and how my kids act. When they're upset, they're young, they haven't been matured, trained enough yet to, when they get upset, they go and they stomp or they throw a toy, or, you know?
Tantrum.
But that's what I'm trying to teach out of them, because that's not a healthy, productive way to live, you know? Like, I said this before, I just can't see what good this is bringing about. And, you know, I think she asked one of her questions, like, what should we do instead? This might seem like, oh, of course, that's a cliche answer, but voting, like, know who you're voting for and what principles they stand for. And, like, not just the president this year, but state officials, local officials, your county sheriff. I mean, all of those things matter. And if you don't like the system, vote it out. Vote differently.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, okay, so what would you say to the people right now that if somebody was to look at you and say, you know, if you're more upset with people rioting than you are George Floyd dying, you're part of the issue?
I disagree with you.
I totally disagree. I think that if you were to say that, why am I more upset? I've turned to be more upset with the riot and destruction.
Yeah, turned to be. I think that's
than
important.
I was.
Yeah, very important, because I was very upset the first couple of days when I watched the video. It was hard for me to comprehend. So
when George Floyd was killed and I watched that video, my first thing was justice needs to be done and this man needs to be punished.
He was murdered.
Once all the facts come out, which it seems like he was absolutely murdered, then I thought that police officer needs to pay justice for that. Why? What did he do wrong? He went beyond, he broke the law, he took somebody else's life. So I believe in that principle for everybody. Now there is hundreds of people breaking the law, destroying property. They're breaking all kinds of laws. So to protest one law being broken, to break more laws, makes absolutely no logical sense at all. And where does it stop? So what am I supposed to do because I know something too that I'm trying to understand is 400 years of oppression is all coming out. And I don't see that as much, but I hear that all the time, that what you're not seeing is George Floyd was just the kind of the straw that broke the back. We're sick of oppression. That's what we're sick of. Well, to that oppression thing is a huge topic that needs to be completely unpacked and talked about. First of all, who's doing the oppressing?
Yeah.
I don't believe I ever have, nor my heart is, or, you know, I mean, this goes all the way back to slavery. I never had a slave. I wouldn't want a slave. I don't believe in slavery. I'm against slavery. But is my skin color guilt me? These are the things. And now I'm not a black person being frustrated with, we've always been put down. I'm not sure that's true. I'm sure it's true somewhat because I have too. I remember I was at the circus once and I got treated unfairly, and we're all treated unfairly at times. Is it worse if your skin color is black? Possibly. But let's look at all the other scenarios. All the other things is, are the cops dealing with a gang? If a cop treats gang members a little more aggressive than other people, it's maybe because they are sick and tired of dealing with gang members, so if I was a cop, I can see getting sick and tired of criminals. I'm just sick and tired of criminals. And we're human beings. It gets the most of us, but it's no excuse. Yeah. It's a reason.
Yep.
But it's no excuse. So if this cop is just sick and tired of dealing with criminals or people who are passing bad money or whatever his situation was, it's no excuse for what he did.
Yeah.
No different across the board for people who riot or do. If I commit a crime, the why I committed it shouldn't matter, except for the punishment. It should matter for trying to keep this from happening again, or my perspective, all that stuff. But to punish a city,
stealing is stealing and is always stealing.
Always.
Okay.
There's a reason you're stealing, but there's no excuse.
Right.
Just steal.
Yeah.
Right. Some people would say I'm hungry, therefore it's okay for me to steal. No. If you're hungry, find it some other way. There's no reason there's no excuse to steal.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think I think it's unfortunate because I know that not everybody protesting is rioting and
Not
burning buildings.
No,
and
peaceful protesting is great.
And that's why I see the unfortunate side of this is actually something that I feel should be peacefully protested, but now that voice is getting drowned out by the select selfish few. And I'll say right now, if you're burning down a building, you're not doing it. You're not great at all. Okay, you're not doing anybody any good.
If you come to my business and break the windows, steal the stuff, and burn it down, I don't care what your beef is. Now I'm mad at you.
Yeah, I don't think it's in the name of George Floyd to burn down a Target that's never going to reopen, and now you've hurt that community in a way where everybody
or low income housing or minority businesses all along Lake Street, and especially, you just mentioned it's not honoring George Floyd. His family has come out and said, please don't do this. This is not what he would have wanted. This is not the type of man he was. Okay, that should have put an end to it right away.
And again, it's unfortunate because there is a large voice that wants to peacefully try and correct the murder of George Floyd.
The great thing about the freedoms in this country is they have the right and responsibility to do that.
But it's getting drowned out by this select few of just.
I don't know what laws can be changed. I don't think we're looking for laws to be changed.
Yeah.
I think we're looking for the individuals on the street or the individuals that are making decisions when laws are broken to, let it go. And I don't think there's any excuse there, too, for letting somebody slide. Now, this police officer, I heard, has been in trouble before. Mm-hmm. What kind-hearted person let them go? It should have been dealt with then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But in the name of kindness and love, we let criminals go out, even if it's a cop. Mm-hmm. Hey, if a cop is out there and he has got an edge of hatred or prejudice of any kind,
it needs to be dealt with.
They need to be dealt with, and they shouldn't be cops.
Yep.
That doesn't mean the whole
police system needs to be burned to the ground.
Doesn't mean the police system is wrong, and it doesn't mean that all cops are bad. That person should have been dealt with before. But we live in a culture where it's just so backwards that we think being good is being nice to people or letting them off or giving them something. Usually when we give people something or let them off or be nice, we are encouraging and we are enabling bad behavior. It goes back to the God thing. How can God judge people? Because people do evil. And evil needs to be judged as soon as it's saw.
Yeah. No matter whether it's somebody being murdered or somebody burning down a building.
Yeah. And I've also heard too that taking a life is much more serious than burning a building. You told me about a post like that. And I would agree that taking a life is much more serious than burning a building. But the taking a life might have been, the point is, even though one's worse than the other, like James says, if the law says you shouldn't steal and you shouldn't kill, well, just because you didn't steal but you did kill, you're still a lawbreaker. A lawbreaker's a lawbreaker, and stealing a piece of gum might be a little bit less of a crime, but deliberately grand theft, destroying a community, burning.
I think that too. If you were talking about just the unfortunate circumstance with George Floyd, and if only one business was burned down, if it was just a 1-to-1 comparison, I think I'd agree. You know what? Hey,
I wouldn't agree, but I would understand.
Yeah. Okay. That still doesn't. Again, not an excuse.
Yep.
But there'd at least be a little more ground to make that argument, I think.
Yep.
But not when you look at entire communities and tons of businesses,
nights upon nights,
and now people dying in other cities. More people have died after George Floyd.
Oh, way more
than George Floyd.
Yeah.
And the economic impact and families and all these different things. Like, any loss of life is terrible. It's unfortunate. It's not good. But stacked against the weight of everything else that has happened, I don't know. I just can't go. I can't go there. I can't understand it.
I watched. There's been a few different people. They live stream on Facebook downtown Minneapolis, and I probably spent 3.5 hours this past Friday night watching riots go on. And I literally watched a family's house burn to the ground because it was next to a building that got a business that got lit on fire. It lit the trees above it and burned their house down. This family is screaming and crying in their yard. And I'm the whole time I'm thinking, what good is this doing for? And this goes back to her question: is like, what good is this doing for your cause, or is this changing it, or do we need to do something else to change? Because for me personally, and here I'll let other people know that have said to me like, well, it's either one or the other. Either you understand why people are burning buildings down, or you're okay with George Floyd being murdered. That is ridiculous. And I will tell anybody that thinks that right now, I don't agree with murder. I don't agree with police officers murdering people, that one in particular that we saw. And I don't agree with people burning down businesses.
Yeah.
And that is totally okay for me to have that viewpoint. But along with watching other people's houses burn and businesses burn, going back to her, what is the effective way? I don't know either.
This is not an original thought. I saw this post somewhere on social media. I wish I could give credit to whoever it was, but this idea of, listen, if you really want to make a difference, stop. The goal of your life shouldn't be to be an athlete or be a YouTube influencer, to be a celebrity, whatever. Why don't you get involved in the process?
Yeah.
Like if you think all cops are bad and racist, why aren't there more African American cops? Like change it from the inside. The NFL is not the way to solve any racial problems that you perceive there are, or any problems with the criminal justice that you perceive there are. Get involved. There are plenty of opportunities. More minorities are in all sorts of businesses, politics. The field has never been more open for change than it is right now.
What if they think burning down a neighborhood is the way to change it?
I will disagree with them to my death
or prison.
Well, and that's the other thing that for me personally, kind of concerns me is, we've talked about this officer, and we all watched what happened. He's been charged with 3rd-degree murder. I hope that holds, because I personally feel he murdered somebody. But on the other side of that, the events that came out of that, is anybody going to be held responsible for burning down? Because what I'm seeing from media right now is you're watching this building burn, but that's just somebody using their voice.
If they're really
I don't get that.
rioting for justice, if you want justice, then it has to be applied equally.
Yeah.
If you picked up a brick, threw a Molotov, killed someone, whatever, justice has to be applied in every situation. Every single rioter should be persecuted.
And it's true. Principles are principles. You can't say, well, for me it's okay and for them it's not. It either is okay or it's not okay. Across the board, it's the only way we have a civilization. It's the only way to do these things.
Subjective, pretty much anything. Yeah. Subjective principles, subjective
good.
Morality, any of that, not good.
It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And when I was watching the news, the second night, I think it was Friday night, and when Precinct 3 or whatever was being burned, I heard one of the TV reporters say, the only reason that building's being burned right now is the cops' fault because they're not there to stop it. I actually heard him say that. You can blame the cops for that building burning because they weren't there to stop it. And two things went through my mind. If they were there to stop it, what do you want them to do? Shoot these people? What? There's a no-win situation here.
And I think it's so, because the other thing I've heard is you look at the aftermath now as we're almost a week removed from these riots starting, and there's people that have sat back and looked at the destruction and said, look at what these cops caused.
Well, wait a minute.
What?
No.
What are you talking about? I get how some people get to that thought process, but you're off. You're off.
Well, it's just not rational thinking.
Yeah.
It's not principle thinking. Why would this be okay? We talked before we came on here about what if we decided to go block 35. because we wanted to tell everybody about Jesus or whatever. Who cares what the reason is? If we went and put some things up there and we blocked 35, would we be arrested?
We should be.
Here's my point. I mean, because, we're trying to make a statement. Who's trying? We've got to have laws that we run by. Yeah. It either is legal to block a freeway or it's illegal. I don't care if there's 30 people there or 300 people there. I don't care what your cause is. It's either legal or it's illegal. We have to, as a culture, run on that. We do, and we have to go with. And I believe like freedom of speech. I believe in freedom of speech. But as soon as you say something's hate speech, you just eliminated freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want as long as I agree is not freedom of speech.
Yeah.
No.
We got to be the same across the board. A murderer goes to prison, whether they're a cop or a thug. It's got to be, and that's part of what these people are mad at. Well, cops are getting away with stuff.
Yeah.
Let's fix that. Part of the cop community maybe needs to fix that. But what you said, there are ways to go about that. You know what? You vote in people who are righteous. They're not, like feel good. Well, we'll protect this and we'll try to manipulate. You don't manipulate. Right is right, wrong is wrong all the time.
Yeah.
And things will get fixed. But will we ever live in a culture where there's not some kind of racism? That's impossible.
Or some sort of injustice.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're sinful
I've
human
lived
beings.
Yeah, right.
It's impossible.
I have been treated unjustly.
I think we talked about this on our first episode.
Yep.
We are broken.
We are broken.
We broke the system.
The world is broke.
Actually,
if you're looking at it from a Christian standpoint, there's your answer. It's broken.
When I was watching that on Friday night, and I saw and they blamed the cops for not being there, I thought, well, if the cops were there, they would hit people in the head or do whatever they had to do to stop them from murder. That would no win. But here's where it came to for me. I actually found myself, even Saturday night, when you called me, I said I was vexed. Like, how are you doing? I am emotionally broken. I was literally crying. I'm watching this and I'm crying, not because I'm one side or the other, because the heart of man is just being revealed.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what? Inside, but for the grace of God, there go I.
We are not
heart. Yeah.
Good people on the inside.
Human beings are broken and human beings have anger and we need to try to work on that more than what the issue is. I really believe, and I could be wrong, it's my opinion, that a lot of these writers, they're just filled with hate. They don't care about Floyd's life. They're just filled with hate.
Yeah.
And they hate everything and everybody, and that's the human nature of man. But to live in a civilized culture, we got to live by the rule of law.
Yeah.
And we live in a voluntary compliant culture. In other words, we don't have enough cops to police everybody. We don't.
Yeah.
We live in a voluntary compliant, and that's what we teach our kids, and that's what we need. Yeah. You voluntarily comply, that we've said these people are in authority, you comply. And then you go through proper channels to fix things. But
all right, so to answer her question, your whole overall is kind of in a way to affect change, you said, is through voting. We have the ability to vote certain people in, and if you want to affect change that way.
Yeah. Vote, get involved yourself.
Involve yourself, do some homework on, the people you're voting
officials.
For. So for you, Kevin, if you're kind of, again, 30 seconds, just kind of going to wrap up her overall question. If peaceful protesting hasn't worked in the past, how do we affect change?
What do we do? How do we bring change? Okay, 30 seconds.
Yep.
I know you looked at me like you don't believe it.
Here we go.
Okay, in 30 seconds. I think to bring change, it starts with us individually first, that we live our own lives as moral as we can, and we follow rules, and we don't treat others unfairly and stuff. Secondly, we move that into our families. We teach our children to act that way. And as we teach our family to act that way, then we move from our home into our community, and we help our community act that way. We stand for those things. And then I would really totally agree with what Shaheen said, and that is vote for people to be in office to make our lawmakers.
30 seconds.
Really?
You told me to watch.
Finish your thought. Finish your thought.
Lawmakers that are just across the board. They don't see color. They don't see they're what's good for one person's good for everybody, and that's the way to actually bring change, and it works.
Good deal. Okay. Well, before we go here, I mean, I do want to say that I know we've talked about it, and us three for sure, and I'm pretty sure everybody who's seen, all of us are in agreement that it's horrible what happened to George Floyd. I believe he was murdered. I know all three of us do. We watched that happen. Nobody's disagreeing with that. And it just makes my heart sad for everybody who is exercising that First Amendment right to peacefully protest and a cause that they really should. And it kind of just hurts me. And I just want to say sorry to those people that your voice is somewhat being drowned out by everything that has gone on throughout the past week. We know that not every protester is doing this, and unfortunately it's kind of taken the view from what people should actually be looking at. So
yep.
But on that note, we thanks again for watching. We're going to be doing this every single week. You asked for it. We love for you guys to send in questions. We love to go over them. And the way you can send in questions, first of all, just comment on this video with a question for next week. Yep. We can go over that. Or you can send us a Facebook message, Access Church, or send us an email, contact@accesschurchonline.org. And we would love to spend some time answering your questions. But thanks again for joining us. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.